Alright guys, so for those who have been on my channel, you guys know that I love to do filmmaking. You guys have seen my short films, things like that, where I just love working with cinema cameras and just getting that nice cinematic quality. I know that you guys haven't really been able to see my editing side of how I edit these videos. So in today's video, we're going to be doing my top 10 tips of how to edit faster and smarter with your editing software. So the very first tip is make sure you guys find an editing software that works for you. Now, if you guys are on a really tight budget where you guys barely have enough money, there are a lot of great free editing softwares out there, but definitely one of them is DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is by far one of the best free editing softwares for you to get, because not only does it give you some of those basic features like what I was talking about, but also it gives you a lot of the nice pro features as well, especially within the color grading aspect. And I know that a lot of films, Hollywood films, actually do indeed use DaVinci Resolve to edit their videos. So again, if you guys are looking for a good free editing software, highly recommend getting DaVinci Resolve. However, for me, I kind of went from DaVinci Resolve into the Adobe Suite, especially since I am a college student and I do get the Adobe Suite pretty much for free, which I'm super thankful for. But especially once I got into it and just working with Premiere Pro, After Effects, Media Encoder, and also their photo editing software such as Photoshop and Lightroom, honestly, I just found it to be such a breeze, and it was just so easy to use, especially with my knowledge from DaVinci Resolve and putting it into Premiere Pro. It just worked so easy, and I just felt Premiere Pro just worked well for me, especially not only does it work well with my Windows machines, but also a lot of the motion graphics and title templates and things that you can use are just really nice to work with. And another great editing software, which is definitely well known for those who are using Apple computers, is indeed Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro is a great editing software, especially for those that do use MacBooks, iMacs, things like that. For me, I'm not really used to the whole software. I have played around with Final Cut Pro before. I don't know. I just don't really find it to suit me as well as Premiere Pro suits me. But again, Final Cut Pro has some great features that even Premiere Pro doesn't have, especially when it comes to faster rendering and exporting times. So definitely there are a lot of big pluses, especially just throughout all the different types of editing software. So definitely the first tip is find an editing software that you are comfortable with. Now the second biggest tip is definitely with your machine that you're editing with. So again, understand the type of footage that you're working with, especially if you're working with higher end footage like 4K footage, 6K, maybe even 8K. You guys definitely want to invest your money into a nice high-end PC, or obviously like a high-end laptop or something like that. So definitely I would highly recommend getting a PC, since it is highly customizable and you guys can kind of choose your configuration of what you want. Or obviously there are laptops out there such as the one that I'm using right now, which is indeed the Dell XPS 17. Personally, to me, I think it's one of the best content creation machines out there, not just for video users, but for photo, especially with that 17-inch display being 4K and having DCI-P3 and also 100% Adobe RGB. It's just such a nice machine to work with, but definitely know your footage, especially if you're going to be working with lower end footage like 1080p or less. You don't necessarily have to worry too much about that, but if you are using higher end footage like 4K, 6K, or even 8K, then definitely you guys are going to want to have a higher end PC. But for those that don't have the high end computers, there is definitely a tip that I will get to later on in this video. So the biggest one that I definitely find flawed with a lot of people, including myself when I first started video editing, and also this just doesn't apply just to video editing, but everything in general when it comes to studying or doing something fast and efficient, is getting rid of distractions. So tip number 3 is getting rid of distractions, whether it's your phone, a video playing in the background, or Netflix or something like that. Make sure to turn it off 100%, so that way you're just going to get into that mind flow, that editing workflow, especially since there is a flow that you get into when you're editing. And also obviously it just doesn't apply just to editing. Also if you are studying, so especially since I'm a student, if you're studying something like that, there is that state of flow where you're just completely into it. So in order to get into that flow a lot faster, you guys want to make sure that you get rid of your distractions. So make sure you guys put your phone away, put it on silent, or shut it down. If there's a video playing, turn that off, and just get into that editing process, and I guarantee you it will definitely make you faster in your editing process. And definitely one of the biggest tips for you guys who are using laptop speakers or all-in-one PC speakers like an iMac is definitely to get yourself some headphones. Honestly, headphones will definitely save you when it comes to editing your audio, because again, for those who don't know, audio is like half of your video. If your audio sucks while your video is really good, people are probably not going to watch it. Comparing to like someone who has like decent video with really good audio, people are gonna watch it because it sounds good, it sounds appealing, and pretty much the audio makes the video what it is. Like, audio is kind of like the backbone to either making your video really good or really bad. So that's why you guys want to make sure that you have a decent pair of speakers, or obviously get yourself some headphones. So the one that I have right here is the Sony XM4s, which I did do a review, info card up there if you guys want to go check it out. And the reason why I chose these headphones is not only does it sound really good, but also it has noise canceling. So again, if you are in a crowded environment, like you're in an airport trying to edit some stuff, then definitely that noise canceling will help you out. So make sure you guys do get a nice high quality pair of headphones. Again, you don't have to necessarily get something that's going to break the bank, but just make sure that you are getting something that is better than like laptop speakers or built-in speakers. Alrighty, so for tip number 5, getting back into editing, is using folders and bins, since they will help you out so much just trying to find your videos. Trust me, I was definitely there with you guys in the beginning when I just was scrolling through my project folder just trying to find like a certain clip, and after like scrolling for like 10 minutes then I finally found the clip. So in order to get rid of that, you guys want to make sure that you create specific folders for specific files. So if you were shooting in one location, then make sure that you have a folder dedicated to that location. Or if you're doing like a video such as like camera comparisons, like, you know, what I did for the Canon RP versus the Canon R5, definitely info card up there. Super fun video with Brandon. So for me, right here in my editing software, I created a folder called Canon R, which is when I had the Canon EOS R, and I was filming some videos on it, and I have all of these files that were shot on the EOS R. So that way, it's just super easy for me to find it, especially if I have a ton of folders or a ton of files that I need to just organize everything. And it just definitely helps a lot in the process. So make sure that you guys are organized and are making the use of bins and folders. So that is tip number 5. Now tip number 6 is actually a really big tip, especially when it comes to working with something like Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. Is definitely using the case of shortcuts. Now for those who don't know what shortcuts are, they're pretty much just shortcuts with your keyboard that you can make. So for example, if I were to drag one of these clips into my timeline and pretty much just kind of like play the video and just like see how it's going, and like let's say like right here within this video I just want to cut it, without a shortcut you would have to go right here into this toolbar, get that razor tool, and then cut it exactly where that line is. But instead of doing that, pretty much you can go into your timeline and use something like Control K and already make a cut. So when it comes to adding shortcuts in Premiere Pro, you want to go into Edit, and then down below you can select to Keyboard Shortcuts, and here you can actually change what each key actually does. Instead of going through these keys individually and adding a specific shortcut, I actually downloaded a preset from a YouTuber known as Sarah Dishi for her Peachy shortcuts that she has for both Premiere Pro and Final Cut. It's so much easier just to have a shortcut with you, so that way instead of having to go to that specific tool within that toolbar, you can already use it just like that. Alright guys, so for tip number 7 is when it comes to the color grading aspect. So when it comes to color grading, I highly recommend you guys using Lumetri Scopes. Lumetri Scopes are definitely going to help you out a lot, kind of figuring out exactly where your video stands. So right here I have my Lumetri Scopes up, especially for this clip right here of me using the Canon EOS R to film the R5, and definitely when I tweak with the black levels, you guys can see how it's going to 0. So definitely when it comes to my black levels, I like to keep it at 0, and when it comes to my white levels, I like to keep it generally pretty high when it comes to like 100, so that way it's nice and evenly balanced. And also you can go in and be working with your saturation, also be working with your contrast, and pretty much adding in your shadows or decreasing your shadows depending on what you like. And definitely it's just super simple when you are color grading. So for tip number 8, something that is really useful is finding presets that works well for you. So for me, I feel like for those who also watch people like Peter McKinnon and Maddie Apoya, have seen a lot of the motion graphics that I use, and it's very similar to what they use since it is the motion graphics that they indeed created. A lot of the motion graphics that I like to use are made by both Maddie Apoya and Peter McKinnon. Love their motion graphics that they do, and those are the ones that I add into my video just to give it a little bit more of some pizzazz and you know, just a bit more effects that the audience will indeed like. One of the ones that I use and the one that I would highly recommend is also created by Maddie Apoya, which is his Maddie Apoya audio presets. Definitely I find them super useful, especially when I'm creating a video like this, because right here in this video, this is without the audio preset. So right now my voice sounds pretty flat, doesn't sound very amplified, and it just sounds very monotone and just not really that fun in general. But right now, I just added in the audio preset. So now my voice is going to sound a lot more full. It's not going to sound as, flat and low, but definitely going to bring some more characteristic into my voice, which I really do like, and I'm really appreciative of Maddie for creating this audio preset, since I do use it a lot and it's just so useful. And also I do use it when I'm editing my podcast, since it definitely just amplifies the voice and just makes it sound a lot better than just leaving my audio levels as just flat. Alright guys, so for tip number 9, it's actually really big. So I was kind of teasing this a little bit when we were talking about knowing what computer and what machine you're going to be editing with. Was definitely when you're working with higher end footage like 4K footage, 6K, 8K, but you don't have a computer that can handle that kind of workhorse. So for me, especially with the R5, since it is able to shoot 8K, when I try to put it into my laptop or when I try to put it into my PC, obviously it slows down the process and it's just not really easy to edit. So the biggest tip for you guys is learning how to use proxies. Now, proxy is probably one of the best recommendations I can give to people that have, a lower end unit to edit with. So pretty much in order to create a proxy for your certain clip, so let's say like this clip right here was shot in 4K and my laptop can't handle it. So you want to right click on that file within your project folder, and you are going to go down to proxy, and then after that it will say you can either attach a proxy. So if your camera does create proxies by itself, you can use that, or you can go to create proxies. So within this, it is going to give you some different presets that you can use, such as ProRes or H.264. So it really depends. If you guys are working with a lower end PC or a lower end laptop, I would definitely recommend using the H.264, since it doesn't take up too much storage within your hard drive. It's just easier to use. But for those that do want a little bit more of a high resolution playback image, then I would definitely recommend using ProRes. So right here, you can choose your format. For me, I'm going to use QuickTime, so that way I can use ProRes. Obviously, you can use higher end things like that. And then below that is going to tell you what your destination is. So whether you want to create the proxies right next to the original media within your hard drive, or if you want to put it within your documents. So for the time being, I'm going to put it with my original media of where it is. I'm going to click on OK. So right now it should be pulling up Adobe Media Encoder. Literally, just as I said, it is pulling up Adobe Media Encoder, and pretty much with Media Encoder, it is going to transcode your footage into a smaller file size, so that way it is easier with your computer to handle it. So this is definitely a game changer for a lot of people, especially for those that have been editing with 4K and 8K clips and their PC just can't handle the power of their files. Definitely just transcoding that footage into a smaller file that it's easier for you to work with in the editing process just makes it so much easier. Alright guys, so now the 10th and final tip for this video of how to edit smarter and faster with your editing software is knowing what your priorities are. So I've definitely been a part of it where I've just been doing my color grading, my A-roll, my B-roll, my sound design, my music, all at the exact same time, and honestly that is probably one of the biggest reasons why it took me such a long time to get my videos done early on when I was editing. But later on, when I watched other YouTubers and see how they just edit faster and also just much smarter than what I was doing in the past, was definitely getting their priorities done. So definitely I would recommend starting off with your A-roll. So your A-roll is pretty much what I'm doing right now. It is talking to the camera, pretty much like the main source of your video. Don't really focus on your color grade just yet or adding in your B-roll. You can do your B-roll right after you finish your A-roll. Now once you got that done, then you can focus onto your B-roll. So your B-roll is pretty much adding in different clips. So like when I was cutting to my laptop, how I had a nice B-roll shot of the laptop. Kind of adding in those types of clips is what you want to add in second. You can actually do this before your B-roll, or you can do this after your B-roll, but it's definitely editing your audio. So definitely editing your audio levels. So for example, if you're speaking too low or the mic wasn't loud enough, you can go ahead and raise those levels or edit it. Obviously, I would still recommend using something like an audio preset in order to amplify your voice and give a bit more characteristic to it. Or if you were like speaking really high or there was just like a really high pitch, obviously you can go ahead and denoise it or lower down those levels. So obviously you want to work with your audio once you're done with your A-roll or once you're done with your B-roll as well. So when you're done editing your A-roll, your audio, and your B-roll, now comes to adding more of that creative juice and a little bit of that that creative look to your video. So now it comes to the color grading area. And now once you're done with your color grade, again, you can go with your creative look and add some motion graphics. So for me, I definitely love working with essential graphics, especially within Premiere Pro. I just think it's super fun and super simple to use. So pretty much you can go ahead and add some essential graphics, motion graphics, whatever it is. You guys can also make your own motion graphics within After Effects. They're pretty simple to do, they're not that difficult, but again, if you don't have the time to make it, 100%, I totally understand. And you can go ahead and download some motion graphics that you guys will like. And it definitely gives a little bit more of some pizzazz and just a lot more life into your video. So as I previously mentioned, you can do your audio editing, a little bit early on, or you can do it a bit later. For me, I like to do my audio once I'm done with my A and B roll, but you guys can pretty much just do your video first, get in all of your, A, B roll, color grade, essential graphics done first, and then you can go and edit your audio. So you can go and raise or lower down your audio gain, add some presets to it, things like that. But the bigger picture of your audio is definitely working with your sound design and also working with your music. So especially if you guys are shooting a short film or pretty much a film in general where you're going to be needing sound design, especially if you're cutting to a clip of the ocean and you want like an ocean sound effect, and or if you're cutting to the sky and you want some wind, you have to add some wind sounds. So definitely if you guys are working on films, highly recommend you guys doing sound design, since again, audio is such a big portion of your video, because if you don't have great audio, your video is just going to be complete crap, even if you're using high-end gear like a nice video camera. And then I'm good to go, and that way it's just so much easier. You don't have to keep going back and re-watching your clips. Trust me, I know this is another big fatal flaw with a lot of people, is that they always go and replay your footage just to see how it comes out. And people do it like, 5 to 10 times. And I'm not gonna lie, that's exactly what I used to do when I first started out with Premiere Pro, is that I always just went back and just rewatched the 10 seconds of the clip, editing a little bit, rewatching that plus that bit, and then going back. And it just takes so much of your time. So that's why you guys just want to make sure that you prioritize your time to where it matters the most. Alright guys, so that is going to do for us on this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, of these editing tips. And for those who are thinking about getting into YouTube, and also for those who are doing YouTube, or not even just YouTubers, it's also when it comes to filmmakers and video editors, I hope you guys can take some tips and tricks out of this, since I know it can definitely speed up your workflow, and it's just going to make it much easier for you to edit your videos faster and just smarter in general. Alright guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.